screen. Oh, wow.
Okay, here we go. Recording is on. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual discussion of author Rachel K. Baldwin's Against Such Things. We have Rachel here with us today. As a reminder, you can purchase this book through orcabooks.com, and I will leave the link for purchase in the chat box on the left of the screen. We also have 2 copies here at the store. We keep selling out of this, actually. Everyone's getting it.
Yay!
So Rachel was kind enough to drop off some more copies for us. So we got 2. All right, so more about Rachel. Rachel is a recovering blackout artist, stay-at-home dog mom, and serial overcomer. For her life has been crazy, intense, messy, ugly, surreal, and beautiful. In between hunting for estate sales, compulsively redecorating her historic home, and hanging out with her favorite people, aka her family, Rachel writes, calling it her bridge to serenity, the place where she is centered and whole. Against Such Things is her first book. So we're going to start with Rachel telling us a bit about the book, and then she'll read us an excerpt. We advise you to press the tile view button at the bottom of your screen to see Rachel full screen. After that, we'll be doing a Q&A. We plan to record this event, as you heard, the big voice of God over us all. So if you don't want to appear on video, please keep your cameras disabled. You can do this at the bottom of your screen. Also, make sure to enter your name. Please keep your mics muted most of the time, but you can unmute yourself when asking questions. All right, Rachel, I give the floor to you.
Hi, guys. I'm so glad that everyone was able to make it. It's really good to be able to spend some time with you amidst the lives that we live today, where that's not so easy to do. Gosh, where do I start? The book for me has been a thing in my life since before I had things to write about. I've always known that I was going to write a book. I've always felt that I had a story to tell, even before there were really chapters to fill it up. And it's not a thing I ever believed would happen, right? Because doesn't everybody struggle with self-doubt? I mean, I know I do. But I went through some pretty challenging circumstances, even in recovery, that really gave me the opportunity to reassess what it was I wanted to leave behind as my legacy. And I just really landed on that I didn't want to traverse all of the challenges and trauma that I had and then just walk away like it had never happened and live in my pretty house with my white picket fence and my sweet dog and my great family. And I felt like I was doing a disservice to people who struggle with similar similar things that I've walked through. Because I know that when I was in the grips of addiction and incarceration or any iteration of trauma that I walked through, I really felt like hopeless and that there was no other way of life. And it's not true. It's not true. Those things that we tell ourselves when we're lost and broken, it's not true. And I feel like if I can help one person see the possibility that they have worth and value and that they can have something different, then sharing my story is worth it. So voila, we have a book, and that is why it exists.
Thank you. Did you want to read a little bit of the book for us?
Yeah. So I really went back and forth on what it was I wanted to read, and I landed on, I'm going to read a couple chapters from towards the end of the book. If you want to follow along, I'm starting on page 315, which is chapter 68. And we'll just get started. So chapter 68, super fucking hot. The shaky front suspension of the old panel van, reclaimed from the tow yard easily enough with a flash of the legitimate ownership papers from my father, vibrates under my hands. My bare, dirty foot is propped on the dashboard. The window is halfway down, and dappled sunlight forms abstract patterns on my leg as I traverse back roads, no specific destination in mind. The speedometer hasn't worked since the crash, but it's safe to say I am way over the limit by the way the love seat wedged across the wheel well shudders and bangs into the van's metal frame. Akasha, collected from his temporary home after Judd got locked up, meows plaintively and paces from the passenger seat to my lap. My breath is labored and my skin splotchy. Chills roll through me and my vision is unsteady and blurry. My lower back aches inexplicably, and I bend over the wobbly steering wheel to catch my breath through the mounting pain. Fuck. I don't feel so great, Akasha. What should we do? Just let the van lead us? Because I'm not sure where to go. Akasha meows again and rubs against my arm, begging for attention. I caress behind his ears distractedly while doing my best to successfully manipulate the unwieldy vehicle into the public access area of the Nisqually River. I navigate the turn, just barely, and stomp on the persnickety brakes with all the force I can muster with only one foot on the floor. The van stops just short of the embankment, skidding sideways on the balding tires and shooting up a spray of loose gravel and sand in its wake. The engine shimmies and shakes and sputters to a halt. The love seat slams violently to one side, then tips forward before falling roughly back in place. I look around circumspectly as the dust settles. Sweat pours out of me, and with a violent stop, the pain in my lower back is amplified to a bright, burning agony. Now what? I turn the rearview mirror toward me and give myself a once-over. My hair is frizzy and lifeless, my eyes so dilated I can barely see the blue-green of my irises. My eyeliner, applied several days ago, is smudged and crusty in the corners. My otherwise pallid face sports 2 spots of brilliant flush color high on my cheekbones, and my stomach clenches and gurgles loudly. I can't be hungry. I downed a 20-ounce Diet Pepsi and an extra-large Symphony bar on, Tuesday, so what gives? I wet my finger on my tongue and do my best to wipe away the smudged eye makeup. I give up after a few unsuccessful swipes. My skin feels like fire. I sigh in frustration, push the mirror away, and lean back in the ripped leather seat. The river running in front of the van has a calming effect, and I turn my attention out the bug-covered windshield, hypnotized by its eddies and swirls. I light a cigarette from the dashboard lighter, roll the window the rest of the way down, and fall into a sort of meditation, stroking Akasha's soft fur as I smoke and watch the river follow its endless course. A sharp rapping snaps me out of my trance. Akasha hisses, hackles up, and I jump as the ash of my cigarette lands on my thigh and burns me. Sure, it is the cops, or worse. I turn and see a face framed in the passenger side window. Yo, Rach, what are you doing down here in the valley? How come you didn't come say hi if you were going to be in my neighborhood? The pulsating tension leaves my body as I recognize my unexpected company. Cooper. Cooper is fine. Harmless, even. He works for the higher-ups, sure, but he isn't a mindless thug. He's always been partial to me, in fact. Even if the price on my head hasn't been lifted, it is unlikely Cooper will be the one to collect. Fuck, you scared me. How'd you know I was down here? I didn't. I was just out and about dropping some dope off to my dude and I saw your van. You gonna let me in or what? I've got some shit if you've got works. I smile broadly, the searing ache in my side forgotten, and lean over to unlock the door. Akasha gives me a sour look as he loses his seat on my lap. Yeah, I totally do. Come in, get in, Coop. Cooper hops into the seat, and in the blink of an eye, we are high, and rolling around, sweating and tangled on the love seat in the back. Oh, God, girl, you are so hot. I shake my head, perspiration dripping and spattering on the streaked windows. I am hot. My vision is doubling, and I can barely move. He grabs my hips and pulls me closer, and I yelp in pain and squirm away. I can't. It hurts so bad. My back. Ah, fuck. Something is really wrong. I sit on the edge of the small sofa, doubled over in pain and trying to catch my breath. Akasha mules with concern and paces the oil-stained floor. Cooper props himself up on one elbow, bare from the waist down, Raiders jersey tucked behind his neck, but still on his arms. Oh, come on. You felt so good wrapped around me. You're super fucking hot. I rock back and forth, clutching my sides in anguish, the pain cresting and crashing in torrential waves. He strokes the base of my neck, attempting to coax me back down onto the crude love nest. Oh shit, girl, you're burning up. You need to see a doctor. I lean away and stiffen. I can't see a doctor. I've got warrants. They'll report me, and I'll go back to jail. Man, do what you gotta do, I guess, but I ain't gonna sit here and wait around for you to die. He jumps up, pulls on his wrinkled basketball shorts, adjusts his shirt, and scoops up what's left of his bag of dope. Hand on the sliding door of the van, he turns, his expression a mixture of concern and alarm. Rach, you really should see a doctor. Chapter 69. Cold tile floor. Cold tile floor. Okay, just breathe. The air in the van is solar level hot, each breath akin to breathing fire straight from the dragon's mouth, and only serves to make the pain more pronounced. I fix my eyes on the ripped and faded captain's chair in front of the steering wheel, gathering all my will. Akasha sits to the side and watches. Okay, Kitty, we can do this, one step at a time. Deep breath and stand. I collapse onto the rigid floorboards, scraping my knee in the process. A weak cry escapes from my cracked lips. It's just a few feet. I can do this. I can do this. Inch by inch, I crawl across the van, cradling my side with one hand and propping myself up with the other, leaving spots of blood on the metal floor from my insulted knees. At last, I reach the driver's seat and pull myself up into a sitting position, using every ounce of determination I can amass. My grip on the physical realm ebbs and flows like the river in front of me. I close my eyes and claw internally for a life raft to cling to as the whirlpool of my sinking consciousness threatens to drag me under. After several infinite moments, the world solidifies. The dark spots in my vision fill in, although the pain does not abate. Water. That's all I need. Some water. A cursory glance around the cab tells me there is none to be had here. I start the engine, back out of my reckless parking job, and drive back toward town. Come on, Akasha. We'll just hit a fast food joint and get a free cup of water. Then everything will be fine. I pull into the parking lot of the Jack in the Box and turn off the engine, out of breath and grimacing in pain. The sun is beating down through the open window, but the passenger side of the van is positioned under a lofty big leaf maple, giving Akasha plenty of shady spots to rest. I'll be back in a few minutes, okay? Just wait here. The door squeals and groans as I swing it open, and the blacktop scalds the bottom of my bare feet. I ignore it and race across the parking lot to the glass door marked entrance, and into the air-conditioned foyer of the burger joint. The line is long, but I do not care. I cannot wait. I circumvent the customers and go straight to the counter. Can I get some water, please? The girl working the register glares at me and tosses her lank, greasy hair out of her squinty eyes. You'll have to wait your turn, ma'am, she retorts, looking down her nose and snickering to her coworkers. Knives, then. Swords, even. I double over and howl like a wolf at the moon. A hellish orchestra of clamoring voices. Is she even wearing shoes? What's wrong with her? Get her out of here. Piercing, unbearable, torturous pain. I collapse onto the cold tile floor, screaming. Hey, stop it. You can't do that here. You're disturbing the guests. Call 911. Stop screaming. Are those track marks? Ew. I am undone. There is no barrier between me and not me. In the distance, I hear sirens. In the foreground, muttering and scoffing. There is nowhere to escape. My vision melts and morphs into a swath of visual snow, and the world goes black.
Yay!
Thanks.
I think somebody is sharing their screen right now.
Oh, is that why it's frozen?
Yes. Let's see.
I think it's me, and I don't know how to undo it. I'll leave, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
I love you. Oh, there we are. Yay, hi.
Okay. Back to the real world. Okay. Okay. Thank you. The magic of giving everybody the power to do whatever they want on here.
Love it.
So thank you for sharing that bit of your book with us.
Yeah.
The screen thing kind of threw me off for a second. Okay, so we have some questions for you,
Okay.
me and Frances, and then we will open the floor up to everyone else.
Okay.
My first question is just a really basic question. What inspired you to write a memoir?
Gosh, it kind of, like I said before, it's just, dude, I had to. Really, the bottom line is, like, I had to. It's all I could think about for always. And it's, I don't want to get too spiritual, but, like, I feel like everybody has a reason to be here and everybody has something to contribute. And this is my thing. This is what I have to give back, right? I did a lot of harm and damage to myself, to people I love, to people I didn't know when I was in active addiction, when I was going through all of my unprocessed traumas. And once I started to find hope and healing and some serenity in life, I realized that it wasn't enough just to get that for myself, that it had to be something that I shared with others. And the way that I'm most comfortable doing that is writing. For me, writing is a lot easier than like this right here, but that's okay.
How long have you been writing?
I mean, I've been writing as long as I can remember. Like I have little stories that I wrote when I was like 12 about like a magic lemon tree or something and three fairy sisters. Like I've always been writing little stories. But this book specifically, I started in 2012. And although the landscape of my life had certainly shifted at that point, like it didn't include warrants or massive amounts of drugs. It certainly wasn't healthy or authentic. So when I really started to write things down, I realized, like there's a lot of stuff here that isn't processed yet, which ended up being really triggering. And I wasn't really sure what my message was because I wasn't living the most authentic version of myself. So I set it down for a really long time. And then I picked it up again November of last year and wrote like a madwoman for 10 months until it existed.
That's great.
Yeah.
That actually has to. So you said you started it kind of at an unhealthy point
I
in your
did.
life.
Yeah.
Well, one question I have is, how did you go about writing about this initial unhealthy time in your life in a healthy way? Because I find writing about like trauma from your past can really bring up those feelings sometimes. So how did you cope with that?
Yeah, it does. That is a true statement. I am super lucky to have a really strong support system in a lot of different arenas, both within my family, within the recovery community in our area, spiritually speaking, and I really leaned into that, and I really didn't shy away from painting it one way or another, right? I tried really hard to not create a one-dimensional story where I was either always the victim or always the bad guy, because nobody's that. Like in anybody's life, no matter how maybe even their life is or how many ups and downs there is, it's never black and white. Everybody has culpability and in some ways in what's going on at some point, and there are times where you don't. So I had to just really hold myself to a standard of honesty about what I was writing and like really tell myself the truth about things that happened, because I really identified there were several things that I wrote about that the story that I had told myself for years about what had occurred wasn't necessarily accurate. So I had to really like pick and choose through, okay, but really, Rachel, were you responsible for that? But really, Rachel, were you not responsible for that? Right? Because I fell into a lot of victim blaming of myself throughout the years, which is, I think, a trauma response for sure. So checkpoints with myself and then with my support system, right? I had my oldest daughter has been a huge I mean, she's fucking wonderful, period. Anybody that knows her can attest to that. But she read like the very first throw uppy everything on paper. Here's all the things that I think I need to say. And like really kind of was like, well, mom, maybe you need to have more of this here because you're kind of missing this angle or this point or less of this, or, yeah, the whole process, I couldn't have done it alone. If I had tried to do it alone, when I tried to do it alone initially, when I first started writing, I tried to do it alone. It was just too much. I just couldn't do it. I was overwhelmed. It re-traumatized me. So I guess just like anything, man, we can't walk through life by ourselves and be successful.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you want to ask your question? Or I can also ask.
Sure. I guess I just have questions around. It sounds like you've been writing for a long time, and I'm wondering how getting sober
Mm-hmm.
The leap from getting sober to the creative process can be really fraught, and there's like a lot of, for myself anyway, I found there being a lot of like, well, what if I get sober and this thing goes away?
Right.
I don't have access to this creative part of my life anymore.
Right.
I'm just wondering sort of like how you bridge that gap if you also had that experience.
Yeah,
And
that was
how much recovery became a part of your creative process.
yeah, that was definitely a factor in the beginning. Like I have snippets of things, journals and other things that have ramblings from when I was really high on them. And from time I actually looked at some of them to see if there was anything worth putting in and it was like, wow, I bet that made sense at one point. It sure doesn't today. You know, like I had a fixation on a specific Dr. Seuss book, The Places You'll Go, when I was really strung out, and I carried it with me everywhere. And I lost it for a time, and a friend returned it to me several years ago, and it's full of all kinds of sage and eminent pieces of junky wisdom. um, and that was a thought, like part of the reason that I chased after my addiction for so long is this quasi spiritual aspect of it, that I thought I was getting something from it, and I was certainly afraid that if I stopped that I would lose touch with that part of me. And I did for a time. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I put it down for a really long time. And in that liminal space in between being completely detached from reality and finding actual recovery was the spot where I was really lost and disconnected. It wasn't finding the recovery, it was traversing through the inauthentic versions of myself and the mask that I put on of what it was I thought I had to be. Like, if I'm not being a bad girl, then I have to be a good girl, right? And that's not any more real than the caricature of me as a badass. So once I put both of those aside and really fully embraced that authenticity and truth I was talking about, that's where I found I guess I found my jive again. And it's more, it's better now, like, because it's not frosting on a shit cake. It's the truth. And it's not always pretty, but it's the truth. And I think anybody who chooses to read it will be able to identify with that. Like, it isn't always pretty, but it's always fucking true.
Okay. That's all we have for our questions, but we're going to open the floor up to everybody now. If they want to ask questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask Rachel your question face to face or screen to screen. Or if you're shy, there's also a little chat box at the lower left that you can type your questions in. And we have a half hour. So if you want, ask away. Or what was it like? Tell me what it was like getting this published.
Well, I mean, like, I did it all, so it was exhausting. Like, I did the cover, and I did the typesetting, and I did the layout, and I've done the marketing, and it's a lot. Like, I thought I had this idea that I was going to write a book and be like, here, and then it would just do its own thing. And while to an extent, it certainly has exceeded my expectations or projections of what is possible to happen with a self-published book, it certainly didn't do it by itself. So it's exhausting. I work, 8, 10, 11 hours a day, most days a week, reaching out to people and talking about things and doing ads. I published it through Amazon, through KDP, And although the process was primarily painless, I certainly had a couple of like, oh my God, what just happened moments in the middle of it. And not having anybody to be like, what am I supposed to do now? Or what, like what is an alternative solution here? Was challenging and certainly stretched some of my 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 spiritual principles like patience and acceptance and all of that. So it was definitely a stretching exercise. But yeah,
Are you Adolescent Bird Publishing House?
I am. Yeah,
Very cool. Very cool.
yeah, that's me.
What was something really unexpected from publishing a book that you didn't expect at all? Like, what, maybe a challenge or something?
What was? I mean, I guess just the amount of time I have to talk about myself, like, like, I mean, I'm cool at all, but like, it's a lot. I really appreciate my inner circle's patience with the fact that I don't seem to have any other topics of discussion like ever. So that I'm grateful for that. The writing almost became automatic at a point. Like it kind of took on a life of its own. Like I had an outline and kind of the basic threads that I wanted to address throughout the book. But it really evolved into its own living, breathing thing. And I know it's not fiction, but I almost understood how a fiction writer can say, I wasn't really sure how it was going to end until I got there because, I obviously don't tell you everything that's ever happened to me. Although it may feel like that when you're reading it. I know that it's pretty intimate in some spots. I promise it's not. It's like 1/100th of like Rachel's stories. So picking and choosing which stories would serve the message that I was trying to deliver was a little more challenging than I expected. And like trying to decide, I'm trying to decide for the reader, right? Like what is too much for you and what is not enough. Like I don't want to beat anybody over the head with this is my message and this is what I want you to take away from it. Like I want you to take away what you take away from it. And I want to honor the experiences I have successfully navigated because I feel like those are the places where I can help others still struggling. So yeah, it's been a process for sure.
Do you have any more questions? Good. All right. Well, here's something. Okay, this is May from The Creative Sober. I was wondering if there is another book in the works, like a sequel to Against Such Things.
Oh man, I've heard that question a few times and it's like, it's been 60 days. I'm so tired. I have so much more that I could write. I'm just really in this moment, I'm considering what I would want another message to be because I don't want to do like, those sequels where it's like they took all the tropes in the movie that like got big reactions and like redid them, but just a little bit different. Like, I don't want to do that. I have plenty of similar stories to the things that are in there and a bunch that aren't similar. And really this book covers the ages in my life of 4 to 28. I'm 45, so there's obviously a whole lot more that doesn't get touched on at all. So I think I'm going to take at least 6 months to really like process what I said to the whole world and what else I may have to say. Because if I do say something, I want to make sure that it's of value and that it's going to add value and not just be to capitalize off of the success of this book. And I'm really glad you're here, May. Thanks for coming.
I really love that. Like, rest up. Oh my gosh. Yeah. May says thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, let's see. I think we are good. So,
okay.
Thank you for being here today with us, Rachel. This was
Yeah.
great. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just really appreciate the opportunity. And I don't know, Jonah, if you saw, I tagged you guys in there. I really do want to share this really quickly before we're done. Like when I was loaded, when I was super lost and wandering around downtown Olympia, like homeless and barefoot and strung out, Orca Books is like the place that I used to go to just sit and get away and like have a moment of normalcy. And the fact that you guys have my book now is like the most beautiful fucking thing I could have ever imagined. So
Oh
I
my
want to
God.
tell you how special and important what it is you guys do is. And thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so nice. We're always happy to open our doors for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, except right
It's
now because we're
important.
curbside, but all right. Thank you, Rachel. This was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you to everybody who came. We will be having another event like this month with another local author, Anne Leigh Parrish, on January 21st at 3, right here at this URL. Keep coming to these things. They're always super fun. This will be on YouTube in a bit. And I'm going to press the off recording button. And it'll
Bye,
scream it up.
everybody. Sending love. Thank